Welcome back, everyone. Very exciting episode, this one. We finally get the turbo in, we get the injectors plugged in, and we find out whether or not this thing's actually going to run, or whether or not we've still got some serious knocking issues going on, and the engine needs to get replaced. So what we'll do, we'll get the turbo installed, and then we'll work on the injectors. Now, in the interest of full disclosure, I've already went ahead and installed the turbo already. Now, the main reason for that is because I haven't really done it before. So if I was trying to record myself doing this, it would just be me swearing, cursing, and basically it would be a 2-hour video as I was trying to figure out what was going on. But we finally got it in though, got the turbo in, we've got the new wastegate, new turbo, that's all fitted. Really, if you're doing this job yourself, just make sure that you obviously use the gaskets. Make sure you get the turbo with the gasket set, makes life a wee bit easier, make sure everything's sealed up. All in all, not that bad to really install. The hardest part really is just the 3 bolts that hold the turbo onto the engine block. The 4 bolts that hold the turbo to the cat is nice and easy. But for the actual engine mount itself, then it's a nightmare. It might also be wise, if you are changing the turbo, to also buy a new stud, because there's one stud that remains in the turbo that you have to fasten from underneath rather than the 2 on the top. But we've got that installed. Now we've also got our injectors. We've installed them already. Now I only have replaced 2 new injectors here on the left hand side. We can still see the codes on them. The old 2 are on the other side. Now, just be careful when you order injectors, because you'll find that they'll have core charges, which is something that I hadn't realised when I had placed my order for these on eBay. Now, thankfully, the company I dealt with, they did communicate with me. They did tell me what was going on. So they were great. I will leave the link to the injectors for the 2.2 that I've used in this example, just so it's easy for you to find as well. But effectively, we had to undo this X clamp here. It's just an 8mm bolt. Now these bolts here are stretch bolts, so as you tighten them in, they will obviously stretch. So if you do remove these bolts, you must replace them with another set. Now thankfully, again, there is a link to the injector replacement set, basically, that you can get from eBay. That came with the new oil seals. So here is actually one of the old oil seals. This is what the injector slides into. You get the O-rings for the fuel lines, the return lines for the fuel, and you also get the copper washers for the injectors as well. Those copper washers are on the injector. You slide them in, and it's the X clamp that physically pushes that down into the engine, creating the seal. So if you do take the injectors out, you need to change those copper O-rings as well, just so that everything works the way it should. And naturally, in that kit, you do get the replacement bolts as well, which is perfect. So now we've actually got these injectors plugged in, we're not finished yet. We can't just turn the key and, and cross our fingers. We can't do that yet. Unfortunately, with the common rail engines, you do have to tell the computer, the PCM, the power control module, that what these injectors are and how much fuel they can actually put into the cylinder at a time. And that's actually what these numbers are on the new ones, on these yellow labels. That's basically their stats, their volumes. The 2 older ones actually have those codes on the connector itself. They're laser etched into the actual connector, so keep a note of them. If you are reusing old injectors, make sure as well that you remember which one they go into. Now, a mechanic friend of mine from Ratho Autos, he told me actually don't lay the injectors on their side. Once you take them out, always keep them upright. A good tip that he shared with me was to get a box. In fact, 2 seconds, I'll go and grab that box. So one of the things he told me to do was just get a box, put some holes in the top of it, and put the injectors in these holes and just keep them standing upright. Now, I'm by no means an expert to say that that is a rubbish tip or whether or not it would break the injectors if they're lying on their sides. However, though, it did have some logic behind it. So that's what I did nevertheless. Had my box here, had our holes in it, ready for the injectors to sit in. And this is a good idea for you as well if you're taking injectors out. You'll also notice that on the box here, I have written it's getting washed out. But we can see here that I've got some markings written here and what cylinder they came out of. Now for the Transit, the cylinder numbers start from the timing chain, which is here on the left hand side as you look at the engine. So cylinder 1, 2, 3 and then 4. So I've just marked them up. We've taken a note of the injector numbers. So we know what injector is inside of which cylinder. Now we need to use the scan tool and program those injectors to the ECU. So we're inside, got ignition on, I've got my box with my codes on it. We now want to just get the scan tool plugged in. This one here I've got is just the Autel. It's the Maxi Pro MP808 if anyone's interested. I do think this is, you know, it's alright, it's bi-directional controls and such like, but I do think it's an older model. I think you can get newer ones now that are a wee bit nicer. Expensive bits of kit though for the DIY, definitely not, you know, for every DIY person. Bit of a cost. So all I'll do is we'll get this plugged into the OBD port. Now for the Transit, the cover is actually just underneath the steering wheel. You just pull that plastic cover off and that will expose the OBD. For us though, we want to have that plugged in there. Just make sure you, can you see that? Yeah, so we'll just get that plugged into the OBD. Now I'm just going to go into diagnostics. I don't know if you will see this, but we're just going to jump into diagnostics. I'm going to choose Ford. Now I'm getting an error message here that says make sure the cable is connected. The cable is connected. We'll click OK anyway, see what happens. Auto select. Try and read the VIN number. VIN failed to read the VIN. Oh my days, man. Right. Let's figure out what's going on here. So a quick bit of googling on the machine here. This does give you the browser function, so you can browse the web for it for more information. So a quick check on Google tells us that the OBD port here actually shares the same fuse as the interior lights, which is fuse 27, and that's actually under the glove box on this Transit. Now it should be a 10 amp, so we'll get a 10 amp fuse, find that, we'll find out if it's that fuse in there that's actually blown. We'll see what happens. Right, I can't really get you on the tripod to see, but effectively we're under the passenger dash now. We've got our fuse panel here. Now it should be on the bottom row that we've got, and it's fuse 27, so we're wanting to try and pull that out. Our fuse is popped, so we'll just swap that over. Fingers crossed, that'll give us access. So I'm just going to put a new fuse in. We'll try our cable out again. See you in a second. Now that that fuse is in, something to bear in mind actually with the Transit fuse boxes is that there's actually a secondary panel. There's actually secondary fuse here. I don't know if you can see that. So there's this drawer. So you've got the main box, and then you've got little tabs that let you drop this down, and then you've got the hidden fuse board just behind it. Anyway, we've swapped that fuse over. let's jump back in and see if we can talk to him. Right, let's see. Now we've got the beep and we've got a little green car light on this particular unit. We've got communications now. So let's get the ignition on and we'll just jump into diagnostic for this. Ford auto selects, try and read the VIN, and it comes up now, so we've got comms. So it was that fuse. Probably actually the lights above my cabin here wouldn't have been working either, so that would have been a top tip. Anyway, we'll click OK. So it's found the vehicle, that's fine. There's a 2.2. Sometimes they do ask you if it's got some extra things. Just now mine's just asking if it's got GPS. It doesn't. Now what we could probably do here is we could probably jump into diagnosis and that would probably give us the functions, but I can actually just click on this service button here and it should be able to allow me to find any kind of service tools that are available. So we want to be inside the power control module. Try service functions. So powertrain control module. And here we go here. So I've actually got some additional options. Now, obviously there's things in here like DPF regens and stuff like. But what we want to do is, I think we need this one that says fuel injector correction. So we want that. Just giving us some information. Ignition on. Off. Click OK. And now we can actually see the injector values here. So basically, let's try and zoom these in a little bit. So basically what I need to do here is I really need to look at my box, find out which cylinder has got what injector, and then type that number in. So I'm just going to go ahead and do that. I'll get back to you once I'm finished. The next thing that we need to do is we need to do this fuel injection pump learn. We need to do that. Now, I have already went ahead and I've done that. Now basically you get told to do various things, turn the ignition off, turn it on, turn it off, turn it on. Once that's been learnt, we then do something called the fuel injector pilot correction. Now again, I didn't want to do that on camera because I've never done it before. I didn't really know what to expect and I was still worried that the van would blow up. But basically we then do our fuel injector pilot correction learn, and then that stabilizes everything. So if you are changing injectors, you need to do your correction factors, which is the numbers on the injectors. We need to then do an injection pump relearn, and once we've completed that, we then need to tell it the pilot corrections. So now we've done all of that, well, we'll see if she starts and how good she sounds. So let's try and start it. Okay, I suppose what we're really looking for now, we want to see how well it sounds, but we're also wanting to look round about here for plumes of black smoke, because it's guaranteed. And obviously we want to see how this does as well. Now I do have the airbox still disconnected right now, but the mass airflow sensor is connected, so it should be okay. It just might be getting a little bit more air than it really should. Let's go and turn the key though, see what happens. Well, that doesn't sound that bad at all. How about smoke? You can smell it. There's definitely some smell there. Let me try sitting you down, we'll rev it up. We'll see if we can get anything like that. Well, to be honest, I don't really know what more to say. That actually was quite successful. She actually sounds alright. The rain has decided to come on for us right now. So yeah, we'll have to cut it short here. But, new turbo, injectors, reprogrammed, relearned. And that's her. Now, there is one last thing which I'd realised. I went into the fuse panel and I had noticed that we had one of these fuses here that had blown. Now it's a 60 amp and this is for the glow plugs. Now I did swap this over with a different one, plugged it in, turned the key on the for ignition, not starting it but just turning it to on, and I saw a little bit of smoke rising. So if you've seen the pictures for the melted injectors, I think it's also melted our glow plugs as well, and it's shorting them to ground. Now thankfully we don't need them to start the van in this test, but I do need to add it to my to-do list. Get the glow plugs out and figure out what's causing that short, more than likely them, and then replace the parts. But that is for another day. So, thanks again for joining me on this quick one. Thankfully, we've got it all done. We've got it all sorted. She's running. I think it'll take a bit of time for the smoke to calm down. Just because the cat and the exhaust will still be full of oil until they get replaced. The exhaust will get replaced, the cat probably won't. But, for scrap money van, diesel runaway, she's alive. Nice. Oh, love it when a plan comes together.